This is the Great Basin Prescribed Fire and Weather Briefing for Friday, March 6th. Looking at fire activity, some prescribed burning here in the purple areas, concentrations here in northern Utah, down in southwest Utah. A couple of recent natural fires in the yellow circles down here in the far south, and some isolated projects in western Nevada, and really tapering down further north. It's been cooler and more moist over the past couple of days and weeks. We look at the precipitation over the past 7 days, central and northern areas, widespread light to locally moderate precipitation, but pretty dry once you get south of the I-80, and especially the I-70 or Highway 50 corridor. It's been bone dry, just another week of little to no precipitation. The flash drought over the last 2 months indicates the highest levels of drought on this index is in our southern third of the region. Our snowpack continues to be pitiful, as we see through here. Lots of areas, somewhere between 40 to 60%, although it has come up here in Utah to about 67%. A little bit higher up in the Idaho mountains, somewhere between 80 to as much as 95% in western Wyoming. However, a lot of the middle elevations that also typically see snow cover, they don't. So a lot of it's confined to the highest elevations, but still close enough to normal. We're not as concerned for a rapid start to fire season in the higher terrain up north. But once you get into the southern half of the geographic region, unless the pattern significantly gets wetter over the next couple of weeks, this is going to be a major problem. Looking at our current snow cover, a little bit of new snow cover in some of the middle to lower elevations with the recent storm moving through the Great Basin. However, that's just 1 to 3 inches, and that's going to melt in 1 to 3 hours once the sun comes out over the weekend. The higher snow cover areas with the deeper snow, obviously still in the higher terrain of Utah and Wyoming, and a little bit here in the Wasatch and Uintas, although not as much as normal. Very little in the Ruby Mountains and even the Sierra. Some coverage, but definitely below normal. Looking at our 10-hour fuels, driest in the south, but even down there, it's closer to 10%, otherwise quite high in the 10-hour fuels. A lot of broadcast burns just might be a little too moist to burn. So looking at the upper level map here on the left, we have a low pressure area here, and that's leaving the Great Basin, moving into Colorado. You see the area of green here with the clouds and the moisture, but still with northerly flow, there's still some continued moisture of snow showers because the area here is quite cold over parts of northern Utah. Not significant, maybe an inch or two at most. Having a hard time to stick to the major roadways in the valley areas, but still going on. Otherwise, northerly flow, high pressure off the Pacific coast. Ventilation looking really good. Typically in the vicinity of a storm system, your overall mixing is good. Looking at surface winds, we have pretty good surface winds here coming out of the north. The orange indicates some gusts or sustained winds could be somewhere 15 to 25 miles an hour, maybe in some higher amounts in the mountains. Tapers off further west. Surface humidity varies quite a bit. Low teens in the south, somewhere between 30 to 55% in central areas, and basically same range further north. Now, the transport wind's quite strong, so a lot of areas seeing 30 to 40 mile an hour transport winds, which are similar to winds in the higher elevations. Vertical mixing looking pretty good in a lot of areas as well, because we're in the vicinity of low pressure, not high pressure. Now, we do have low pressure kind of cutting off in the south here. It drops down into southern areas tomorrow. There could be some high-level clouds coming in around this high pressure area. These are not really precipitation-producing clouds, just high overcast skies. Could dim the sun a little bit, but still we're starting to see more of an influence of this high pressure area in the Pacific. Still overall, pretty good ventilation in the white areas. Surface wind strongest in the south with north-northeast flow. Sometimes that accelerates the downslope flow off the mountains outside of Cedar City down into St. George and into the Vegas area, into the Grand Canyon. And that downslope flow creates afternoon humidities down near 10 or 11%. And then obviously the humidity tends to rise in the 20s and 30s and eventually 50 or 60% or higher further north. We look at the transport winds, same thing, but they're a bit stronger. Some could be in excess of 30 miles an hour further south. Also some decent transport winds in the north, up in Idaho and western Wyoming. Vertical mixing overall, several thousand feet in the yellow to reds, looking pretty good. Now, the ventilation index does worsen a bit in some areas on Sunday, see more red and yellows where areas were in the white, and that is because high pressure off the Pacific is starting to nose in kind of in a weird way across the central Great Basin. This low pressure area is now being pinched off and pushed off of Baja. Most of its moisture has now been depleted. It's over colder water, so you see a lot more of this brownish dry air mass shade, not that green air mass from a couple days ago. Winds lightening up in most areas. Relative humidity, again, similar story, down near 10% in the south, 20 to 35% central areas, then 40 to 60% further north. Light winds, and even on the transport wind side in a lot of areas, but stronger up in parts of Idaho, especially eastern Idaho and western Wyoming. Vertical mixing looking decent in all areas, except a little lower in these greenish shades across central to northern Nevada into parts of Utah. 3-day precipitation totals shown through here, fairly light amounts. Most of this will be in the next 12 hours, a couple hundredths to a tenth of an inch. Same story for up in Idaho later on. Now on Monday, we actually have a pretty well-defined cold front in the north. There'll be some clouds through here. Precip, very little, if any. There's that low still drifting around down off of the Baja area. High pressure still in a very similar spot off the Pacific Southern California coast. Dispersion a little lower in the south, but improving in these white areas as that cold front approaches. There'll be some good mixing winds. Now, as we go into Tuesday, as the slow marches inland, it does start tapping some moisture, but that moisture stays well to our south. We're kind of still watching kind of this frontal system through here approaching from the north. You see the cloud bands through here. This will eventually bring clouds and cooler temperatures, higher humidity, and maybe eventually some precipitation to our Idaho mountains. We'll see maybe by the end of the period, but otherwise for central and southern areas of the Great Basin, this southern high pressure ridge with warmer, drier conditions will be the dominant factor. Precipitation days 4 and 5, again with that frontal system to the north, some spotty precipitation in our far northern Idaho mountains. Day 6 and 7, similar story, just up north a little bit. Otherwise, most areas stay precipitation free. This is the 7-day total. Again, a lot of this in Utah, parts of western Wyoming is what's going on in the first 12 hours. Longer range look, the 8 to 14-day outlook from March 13th to 19th. So we're going well into the third week of March. A strong signal of above normal temperatures and drier than normal conditions for about 2/3 of the geographic area. Up in Idaho and western Wyoming, it's going to be considered normal chances of precipitation. It means over that 7-day period, maybe one storm, light to moderate precip at best, but it'll probably peter out as you head south of the Idaho border. So snowpack, parts of Utah and Nevada will continue to slowly dwindle, I think, over the next 2 weeks after this storm. This concludes our briefing. We'll have another one coming up this Monday. Have a great weekend.